It's Thursday. Welcome, everyone.
Glad to be here.
Welcome to the 14th episode of Echoes from the Source.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're diving into some really practical insights from Gurudev's book, An Intimate Note to the Sincere Seeker.
A fantastic resource.
It really is. And we're focusing on one chapter specifically, one that tackles something, well, let's face it, we all deal with: rude behavior.
Oh, yes, that universal experience.
Exactly. But this isn't just about, putting up with it. The chapter offers ways to really understand and maybe even transform how we experience these encounters.
That's the core of it. It starts by acknowledging, our usual reactions. Getting upset, maybe snapping back.
Frustration, avoidance, maybe even blaming them or trying to preach at them.
Right, all those things. But Gurudev points out that these reactions, common as they are, don't actually strengthen us. They sort of keep us stuck.
Stuck in negativity, yeah. So if our usual go-to reactions aren't the answer, what does the chapter suggest instead? It offers quite a few alternative ways to look at rudeness, doesn't it?
It really does. It reframes the whole situation. For example, one perspective is that the rudeness might actually signal their passion or deep commitment to something.
Okay. How does that work?
Well, think about it. Someone might be so focused, so intense about their point or their task, that their delivery comes across as abrupt or inconsiderate. It's not about you, necessarily.
Ah, I see. So it's about their internal state, not an attack.
Exactly. Or another angle the book offers is that it could indicate their stress levels, maybe a temporary lack of sensitivity because they're overwhelmed.
Which, again, isn't personal. It reminds you that you don't always know what's going on behind the scenes for someone else.
Precisely. And it goes further, suggesting rudeness might reflect their upbringing, perhaps a behavioral pattern they're stuck in without realizing it.
Or just a lack of awareness, like they genuinely don't know how they're coming across.
Or haven't learned to observe their own mind and sensations, how their inner state translates into outer behavior.
So seeing it this way kind of creates a bit of distance mentally.
It does. It helps you not take it so personally. And interestingly, the chapter also flips it, saying that observing rudeness in others can actually be instructive. It shows you behavior you might want to avoid yourself.
A chance for self-reflection then.
Okay.
Okay, but here's where it gets really proactive, I suppose.
Yeah.
The chapter frames these moments as opportunities.
Yes. Opportunities for growth. Tests for our own equanimity, our ability to stay balanced inside no matter what's happening outside.
Like mental or emotional strength training.
Kind of, yeah. By consciously choosing not to react negatively, you build inner resilience. The book even suggests we can practice welcoming or absorbing that rudeness without letting it shake us.
Welcoming rudeness, that sounds challenging.
It is. But the idea is that by digesting it, by processing it without reacting, you strengthen your mind immensely. It can even, the book suggests, reveal a deeper capacity for unconditional love within you.
Wow, that's quite profound. And is there a specific action recommended?
There is. And it's simple but powerful. Respond with a broad smile.
Just smile when someone's being rude. That feels incredibly counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it? But think about the effect. A genuine smile, not a sarcastic one, can completely diffuse the situation. It breaks the expected pattern of negativity.
You're not engaging on their level.
Exactly. You're not escalating. And the chapter implies that consistently doing this, choosing this non-reactive positive response, builds that unshakable inner strength over time.
That's a lot to think about. Now, slightly shifting gears, but maybe related, we heard some news about Gurudev's recent travels.
Ah, yes, the trip to Kerala.
That's the one. Apparently, he had an overnight stay in Bangalore and then went on to Kerala. The welcome he received sounds incredible. Cochin, Trikir, Trivandrum.
I heard about that. Enthusiastic crowds, people sharing healing experiences, big satsangs, even a reception by the royal family in Trivandrum, apparently. Lots of positive press coverage, too.
It sounds like a really positive, high-energy tour. And I wonder, connecting it back, perhaps that ability to navigate all kinds of interactions with grace, the kind of inner strength this chapter talks about, contributes to fostering such positive and welcoming environments.
That's an interesting thought. It makes sense that cultivating that inner equanimity would radiate outwards, wouldn't it? Leading to more harmonious connections. The sources consistently point out that this kind of behavior, this rudeness, it often stems from what's going on inside them.
Like what sort of things?
Well, it could be stress, anxiety, maybe past conditioning, things they've learned or experienced. Sometimes it's just a lack of awareness, Or maybe unhealed emotional stuff, wounds they're carrying. Even misunderstood passion, or just feeling like nobody's hearing them. That idea of emotional baggage, inner turmoil, it comes up again and again. It's like an imbalance inside them spilling out.
Okay, yeah, let's pause on that because instinctively, right, we think, what did I do?
Right.
Or how dare they? So this shift to thinking, maybe it's about them. That's big.
It's a huge shift, and there's this quote from Gurudev that really stands out across the material. If you can digest their rudeness, nothing whatsoever can shake you.
Digest their rudeness. Wow, okay, unpack that. It doesn't mean just roll over and take it, right?
Not at all. It's not about being passive or, tolerating abuse. It's about cultivating inner strength, mastery over your own reactions. The idea is to see the rudeness less like a personal jab aimed right at you, and more like a signal, like an indicator that the other person is maybe struggling or in pain or stuck, as one source put it.
A signal. I like that framing. Takes the heat off a bit, like a flare going up from someone else's boat, not a cannonball aimed at mine.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. And this leads right into another key concept from the sources, the mirror idea.
Okay, the mirror concept. Intriguing. What's it reflecting back? Not just them, apparently.
Right. This is where Gurudev's teaching gets really interesting. He says, every rudeness you encounter is a mirror reflecting what you still react to.
Whoa. Okay, so the mirror isn't just showing their stuff. It's showing my stuff, my reactions.
Precisely. The focus shifts. It's not about judging their behavior anymore, but about looking at your own internal response. What buttons did that rudeness push in you? What are your triggers?
So less about their flaws, more about my own growth areas. That's challenging, but I can see the value.
It is challenging, but the sources suggest it can even help us see our own shadows, those times when maybe we're the ones being impatient or a bit sharp.
Oof. Yeah. Okay, recognizing that in ourselves probably makes it easier to have some empathy when others slip up.
Exactly. And this whole line of thinking leads to what might be the most radical idea in the sources, that rudeness can actually be seen as a spiritual exercise.
A spiritual exercise, like going to the spiritual gym.
Sort of. Or a tool for evolution, as another source called it. It sounds really counterintuitive, I know.
Yeah. Tell me about it. How does that work?
Well, think of it this way. Each time someone's rude, it presents you with a choice point. Do you just react automatically? Anger, defense, hurt?
The usual stuff?
Right. Or do you choose something else? Do you try to transcend that immediate impulse? This is where the idea of spiritual resistance training comes in.
Spiritual resistance training. Okay, I'm starting to get it. Like lifting weights, but for your emotions.
Exactly. Each encounter where you manage to choose a calmer, more aware response, it builds that emotional muscle. It strengthens your resilience, deepens that inner peace. It's not just something nasty to endure. It becomes an active opportunity to get stronger inside.
Okay, that reframes it completely. And I guess to help us really grab onto this, the sources offered up some metaphors. You mentioned those earlier.
Yes, lots of really helpful metaphors. They make the concepts much more tangible.
I love a good metaphor. Hit me.
Okay, so one is likening rudeness to a hot cup of tea being offered to you.
You don't have to take it.
Exactly. You don't have to grab it and get burned. Or similarly, it's like someone throwing a ball of fire. If you try to catch it, you get hurt.
But if you just step aside.
It falls, it fizzles out. It emphasizes your choice, your agency in whether you engage with that negative energy.
Right, okay. What else?
Then there's the storm cloud. Think of the rudeness as just impersonal weather passing through their system. It's not really about you. It's just a temporary state.
Like a bad mood being a passing shower.
And the hot coal metaphor is similar to the ball of fire. Don't pick it up, let it drop.
Okay, these are great for visualizing that it's temporary and maybe not personal.
Then there are ones about our inner state. Rudeness is like a muddy river. If you react, you stir up all the mud.
But if you stay still.
Stillness lets the mud settle. Your awareness is like a candle flame. If it's steady, the wind of their rudeness can't blow it out.
Ooh, I like that one. The steady flame.
And your inner peace is like an ocean. The rudeness might cause some ripples on the surface.
But the depths remain calm.
Exactly. There's also the thorns on a rose bush, encouraging you to see the person's core, the rose, not just fixate on the prickly thorns of their behavior.
Focusing on the potential good underneath.
And finally, tying back to what you said earlier, the dumbbell in the spiritual gym, it feels heavy, maybe it even hurts a bit in the moment, but using it builds strength.
Wow, that's a whole toolkit of mental images right there.
Yeah.
Helps create that feeling of inner stability, even when things outside are chaotic. But, it's one thing to talk about the theory and the metaphors. It's another to see it work in practice.
Mm.
And you mentioned the sources included personal stories. Those always hit home.
They really do. These real-life examples make it so much clearer. For instance, there was a story about a mother whose teenage daughter was often quite sarcastic.
Oh yeah, familiar territory for many.
Right. But instead of reacting like she usually did, getting drawn into an argument, the mother tried just being silent
What?
and offering a gentle smile.
Hmm.
How did that go down?
Apparently the daughter was a bit thrown off, and later she actually came and apologized. She started seeing her own behavior more clearly because the usual reaction wasn't there.
Wow. So the non-reaction actually created the space for the daughter's self-awareness. That's powerful, isn't it? And another one, quite moving, about a marriage that was really struggling. The wife remembered Gurudev's teaching about rudeness sometimes coming from a burdened heart. So when her husband snapped at her, instead of snapping back, she said something like, "You must be carrying something heavy today."
Wow, that takes courage.
It does, and it completely shifted the dynamic. It broke through his defensiveness, apparently, and they actually started talking. It highlights that empathy piece.
Yeah, empathy as a response to harshness. Incredible.
Yep.
Any others?
There are quite a few. A school principal who got yelled at by a really stressed teacher in front of other staff.
Awkward.
Very. But the principal stayed calm, didn't escalate, and just said something like, "I hear you're frustrated. Let's talk about this privately later."
Good move.
Yeah. It led to the teacher apologizing, explaining her personal struggles, and apparently brought some healing to the school environment. The calm response made space for the truth to come out.
It seems like that calm, non-reactive stance is the key.
It really is the common thread. We heard about a corporate exec dealing with a condescending boss by focusing on his breath, a meditator gently responding to an angry project manager, which disarmed him, a yoga teacher asking a disruptive student, "Are you okay?" which uncovered pain and built compassion.
Asking, "Are you okay?" instead of, "What's wrong with you?"
Big difference.
Huge difference. And stories from Art of Living volunteers handling difficult situations, teachers with disrespectful students, even just colleagues being rude. In almost every case, a calm, aware response, sometimes setting a boundary, but doing it with love or respect, diffused the tension.
Ah.
Often it even led to apologies later on.
It's really striking how consistently choosing not to mirror the rudeness, but instead offering awareness or empathy or even just stillness can change the whole interaction.
It really demonstrates the power we have in our response. So for you listening, how can you start putting this into practice? What are the concrete takeaways?
Yeah, the practical stuff. Let's get into that. Okay, well, one of the biggest ones mentioned over and over is pause first. Build that pause muscle.
Just stop before reacting.
Yeah. Take a conscious breath. Maybe just a few seconds of silence. It creates that crucial space between the stimulus, the rudeness, and your response. I know for me, that immediate reaction can be so strong.
Oh, totally. The knee-jerk thing.
Exactly. So consciously building in that pause, it's work, but it's key.
Okay, pause first. Got it. What else?
Observe, don't absorb. Try to notice their behavior like you're an observer without immediately taking it personally, without internalizing it.
Like watching that storm cloud pass by, not standing out in the rain.
Precisely. Remember the "it's not about you" idea, and try to see the pain behind the words. Train that empathy muscle. Consider why they might be acting that way. What could be going on for them?
Okay, so stepping back mentally, analyzing a bit instead of just feeling the hit.
Exactly. And related to the pause is respond, don't react. Make a conscious choice for a calm, thoughtful response instead of just firing back impulsively.
Choosing your action instead of letting the trigger choose it for you.
And remember the mirror idea. Be the mirror, not the echo. Don't just reflect their chaos back at them. Try to reflect your own clarity, your own peace.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Absolutely. But even small attempts help. Another surprising tip was the gentle smile. Smile is your shield, one source called it.
A shield, huh? Not an aggressive smile, but...
No, not confrontational, just a gentle, maybe slightly detached smile. It can actually diffuse tension quite effectively without escalating things.
Interesting. Okay, what other tools are in this kit?
Use the rudeness itself as a mindfulness bell.
Like a reminder.
Yeah, a reminder to come back to your breath, come back to the present moment, come back to your awareness. Don't let them pull you off center. Remember, don't let others write your story. You control your emotional response.
Taking back the power.
Exactly. Some people find it helpful to literally visualize a shield of calm around themselves, like a mental buffer. And importantly, try to release expectations. Don't expect everyone to be perfectly polite all the time. People have bad days. Accepting that can make you less easily bothered.
That's a big one. Letting go of the expectation that things should be different.
It really is. And then there are the longer term practices. The sources consistently, strongly emphasize cultivating inner stillness through daily meditation.
Why, yes, meditation. Knew that would come up.
It's central to this approach. Meditation isn't just about feeling calm during the practice. It fundamentally strengthens your mind's resilience. It expands your awareness, makes you less reactive, helps detoxify emotional triggers, as one source put it. It basically makes your nervous system more robust, more like that deep ocean we talked about, less disturbed by surface stuff.
So it's like preventative maintenance for your reaction system.
That's a good way to think about it. It builds the foundation. The sources also talk about redefining strength. True strength isn't about shouting loudest or winning the argument.
It's about not being provoked.
Exactly. Staying calm, centered, that's real strength. Other tips include maybe journaling about how you react, celebrating the times you do manage to stay composed that reinforces the positive behavior. Using affirmations can help keep you centered. And in specific contexts like work, sometimes the best approach is to respond with facts, not feelings. Keep it objective.
Right. Stick to the issue, not the emotion.
And in public spaces or online, sometimes the best response is minimal. A soft glance maybe, or just moving on, disengaging.
Yeah, knowing when not to engage is a skill in itself. So it's a really comprehensive set of strategies from the immediate pause to the long-term meditation practice.
It really is, and it all loops back to that final reflection that came through strongly in the sources. The goal isn't really to make rudeness disappear from the world. That's unlikely.
Not possible, yeah.
Right. The real goal is to change our relationship to it.
To shift our own internal response so it doesn't have the same power over us.
Exactly. It's about tapping into that power we have to choose love, to choose awareness, instead of just reacting with anger or hurt. That's where the personal freedom comes from, that feeling of lightness, not being dragged down by someone else's negativity. It's about connecting more deeply with who you really are.
That alchemy idea you mentioned earlier, turning the lead into gold.
Turning that negative interaction into an opportunity for inner strength, for compassion. Because ultimately, as Gurudev teaches, if you can digest that rudeness, you become unshakable. Your peace becomes your responsibility. It's not dependent on how everyone else behaves.
Wow. Okay, so the big takeaway here really is that rudeness, yeah, it's unpleasant, no doubt, but it doesn't have to ruin your day or derail you. It can actually be a prompt, a catalyst for growing stronger inside, a reminder of our own ability to choose peace.
That sums it up beautifully. It's not about them, it's about your response.
Yeah.
Shifting that perspective, using these techniques. It allows you to move from being reactive to being responsive, and that's the path to greater emotional mastery and ultimately more inner peace.
This has been incredibly helpful, really insightful stuff. He apparently says, when someone is rude, it reflects their stress, not your worth. That just hits differently, doesn't it? It kind of takes the personal sting out immediately.
Absolutely. And once you start seeing rudeness that way, like maybe it's a symptom of something else going on for them.
Instead of just a direct hit on you.
Exactly. It just opens up a completely different path for how you might respond. Our sources mention it could stem from all sorts of things, stress, obviously, but also like ingrained habits. Maybe they're just unaware.
Or how they were brought up.
Yeah, or maybe some inner conflict, unprocessed emotions, even just, pain they're carrying around.
It really makes you pause, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How often do we just react to what's on the surface
without thinking about what might be underneath?
Have you ever, like in the moment, stopped and thought, maybe this isn't about me, maybe they're struggling? It certainly reframes how you look back on things.
It really does. And the sources, they illustrate this so well with some really compelling personal stories.
Okay, let's hear them.
Okay, so there's this one about a tea vendor. A volunteer was offering food, part of some service initiative.
Okay.
And this guy just snaps at him really sharp, like, you think you're better than us. Keep your food.
Wow. That immediate defensiveness, it's striking.
It is. And the volunteer's reaction is, well, it's really the key here. Instead of getting defensive or mirroring that anger.
Which would be the easy thing to do.
Totally. He just calmly says, may you be happy, and keeps offering the food. Just kept going.
And what happened then?
Well, what's amazing is that a few moments later, the same man comes back, totally different vibe, and apologizes. Said he'd just been having a really rough week.
So the lesson there is really about that non-reaction, isn't it? Creating space instead of escalating. It let the guy's sort of vulnerability come out.
Precisely. The volunteer didn't add fuel to the fire, he created space. And that allowed the guy's real feelings to surface. It shows how breaking that reactive cycle can lead to something, well, unexpectedly human.
That's a great example.
Then there was another story about an elderly hospital volunteer. She was dealing with rude, agitated patients all the time.
Oh, I can imagine. That sounds incredibly draining. Anyone in a service role probably gets that.
Exactly. She was feeling totally worn out by it. But then she came across Gurudev's teaching, specifically about responding with a smile.
Just a smile. Seems simple.
Seems simple, but it apparently made a huge difference for her. Even when someone was really angry, complaining about waiting, she'd respond calmly, compassionately, with a gentle smile, saying something like, "I understand this is hard. I'm here to help."
And how do people react to that?
Often their anger just dissolved. They'd calm down, sometimes apologize, admit they were just stressed or scared.
So it shows how that calm, kind response can actually soften the other person's negativity. It changes the whole interaction. The key takeaway is that softening effect.
Exactly. It transforms the dynamic. We also heard about a volunteer at the Bangalore ashram. His colleague kind of blew up at him, unfairly blamed him for something in front of other people.
Ouch. Another situation where your gut reaction is probably to jump in and defend yourself.
Yeah,
Argue your case.
definitely. But this volunteer, he chose differently. He decided the work they were doing was more important than his ego in that moment.
So what did he do?
He just calmly said something like, "Look, I'm here to get this done. Let's talk about this later," and focused back on the task.
Did they talk later?
They did, and the colleague apologized. It really highlights the strength in choosing maybe silence sometimes, or just prioritizing the goal over the immediate conflict, and how understanding that can actually help everyone grow a bit. The lesson is about choosing silence, maybe, or the bigger picture over ego.
Interesting. What else?
Then there's the story of a young woman on a bus in Mumbai. She's exhausted after a long day, and this man rudely accuses her of pushing him. Just a classic, everyday, stressful situation.
Oh yeah, those crowded commutes can be tense, easy to snap.
Exactly. And her first instinct, especially being tired, might have been to snap back. But instead, she responded calmly, apologized if she had accidentally bumped him, and then gently asked if he was okay.
And what was his reaction?
That's the thing. He then revealed he'd just lost his job that day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's such a stark reminder that sometimes that rudeness we encounter, it might actually be a kind of cry for help, a sign of pain or difficulty we just can't see. The lesson is that unseen pain connection.
That really hits home. One more?
One more, yeah. A seeker at an airport dealing with an airline staff member who was just incredibly abrupt, almost dismissive.
We've all been there, unfortunately. Bad customer service can really grate.
For sure. And the seeker felt that initial urge to, push back, maybe complain. But then she remembered a teaching about digesting rudeness, absorbing it.
Digesting it. Okay.
So instead of reflecting that negative energy back, she chose compassion. Said something simple like, "You must be having a really tough day."
And the agent?
Immediately softened, apologized, admitted it had been a terrible day. It just shows again how choosing that compassionate response can completely flip the script.
Yeah.
Turn potential conflict into a moment of actual human connection. The key is that transformative power of compassion.
These stories are powerful. Across all of them, that central thread seems to be responding with non-reaction, with understanding, even kindness.
Yeah, and how that de-escalates things, reveals what's underneath, and leaves you feeling less dragged down by it all.
It really brings that core idea to life, rudeness, reflecting the other person's state. Okay, so these stories are great illustrations. The sources also use some interesting metaphors to help grasp this on a deeper level.
They did, yeah. They offer different ways to visualize what's happening.
One that really stuck with me was rudeness as unripened fruit. Tell us about that one.
Right. So think about a mango that falls off the tree too early. It's hard, maybe sour. It's not bad inherently.
It just needs more time, right? More sun, more development.
Exactly. So applying that to rudeness, it helps us see the behavior not as a fundamental character flaw, but maybe just a sign that the person is, unripe in some way.
Maybe immature emotionally, or stressed, or just lacking awareness at that moment.
Yeah. And seeing them as souls in progress, as one source put it, naturally makes you feel a bit more patient, more understanding. The key insight is seeing it as a sign of being unripe, which encourages patience.
It definitely shifts from judgment to something closer to empathy. What's another one?
Another compelling one is the sandpaper of the soul.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. Sandpaper. It's abrasive, uncomfortable.
Right. But what does sandpaper do? It smooths rough edges. So the idea is that these uncomfortable interactions, while unpleasant, can actually help refine us.
How so?
Well, they can show us where our rough edges are, where we're still reactive, where our patience gets thin, where our inner peace isn't quite solid yet.
Ah, so it reveals our own triggers.
Exactly. It even suggests we could feel a bit of gratitude for these moments, seeing them as like opportunities for our own growth. The insight is rudeness acting like sandpaper, helping us smooth our own reactivity.
That's a challenging perspective, but interesting.
Mm.
What else?
Then there's the metaphor of the echo in the mountain.
Okay, echo.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what comes back isn't originated by the mountain itself.
Precisely. The idea is that the rudeness you're hearing might just be a reverberation, an echo of their own internal state, their stress, their turmoil.
It's not necessarily aimed at you personally.
Right. It encourages us to be like the silent mountain, absorbing the echo rather than shouting back and adding to the noise. The lesson is seeing rudeness as an echo of their state, not directed at you.
That makes sense. We also had the storm in the tree.
Yeah, this one's great for visualizing inner stability. Compare the rude behavior to a passing storm.
Lots of noise, turbulence.
Right. But compare your inner self to a deeply rooted tree. The winds might blow, the rain might lash down, but the tree's core remains stable, unmoved.
So it's about cultivating that inner groundedness, that resilience. So the external storm doesn't knock us over. The insight is learning to be rooted like a tree.
Exactly. And finally, bringing us back to where we started, rudeness as a reflection.
The mirror idea again?
Yep. The rude behavior is like a mirror, reflecting back the other person's inner world, their stress, maybe their background, their lack of awareness, whatever it might be.
And the advice there is?
To focus less on arguing with the reflection in the mirror and more on maybe noticing our own reactions, our own internal smudges that the situation reveals. The insight is rudeness reflecting them, prompting us to look inward.
These metaphors really offer a rich way to understand it all. But okay, understand is one thing. What about actual practical steps? What can we do day to day?
Right, because perspective shifts are great, but you need tools for the moment.
Exactly. What actionable things did the sources suggest for handling these encounters?
Okay, so there's a good set of tools, all aimed at keeping your center when faced with rudeness. First up, recognize the source.
Like we discussed, asking yourself, is this really about me?
Yeah, or is it likely about their state? That pause for questioning is step one.
Okay, makes sense. What's next?
Building right on that is don't personalize it. Actively tell yourself, remind yourself, this is probably not personal.
Like a little mental mantra.
Exactly. One source even suggested literally repeating internally, this is not about me, this is not about me. It helps create that boundary.
I can see how that would work.
Then, tool number 3, don't internalize the tone. Rudeness often comes with that negative emotional charge, right?
Oh, definitely. You can feel it.
So the idea is not to absorb that negativity. Visualization helps here. Picture the words or the tone just bouncing off you.
Like an invisible shield.
Mm.
Or a shield of light, maybe.
Yes,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Imagining those negative vibes just hitting the shield and dissipating. It's a mental technique, but effective.
Cool. What else?
Next, try to see the pain behind the behavior. Make a conscious effort to think, okay, this person might be carrying something heavy, some struggle I don't know about.
Shifting from seeing an aggressor to maybe seeing someone who's hurting.
Right. And the practice suggested is maybe responding with genuine curiosity, like a gentle, are you okay? Or even if you don't say anything, just silently sending them some positive energy, some compassion.
Okay. And then there's the smile.
Yes. Mentioned in multiple sources, a simple, gentle smile can be surprisingly powerful.
It feels counterintuitive sometimes, doesn't it? Smiling at rudeness.
It can, but it's not about being weak or rolling over. One source called it emotional aikido.
Ah, I like that. Redirecting the negative energy without escalating.
Exactly. So the practice is just trying consciously to offer a small, genuine smile. And it's not just for them, it's for you too. It reminds you you're choosing the response.
Right, you're not being pulled into their state. Good one.
Then there's the idea to make it your mind gym, or sadhana, spiritual practice.
Treating these moments as mental workouts.
Yeah, like reps for building patience, equanimity, inner balance. It reframes it from an annoyance to an opportunity.
And the practice.
Consciously taking a deep breath right when you feel that urge to react defensively, that tiny pause makes a huge difference.
Which leads nicely into the next tool. Breathe, pause, observe.
Absolutely fundamental. Taking deliberate deep breaths before responding. creating that moment of stillness.
Builds resilience, stops impulsive reactions you might regret.
Exactly. Specific practices mentioned were things like counting to 5 before saying anything, or even using calming breaths like ujjayi or alternate nostril breathing if you feel really triggered.
Those are concrete things you can do. What about afterwards?
Good point. The next tool is reflect after, not during.
Meaning, don't try to analyze or teach them a lesson right there in the heat of the moment.
No, definitely not the time. Instead, later on, maybe that evening, take some time to think about how you felt, what specifically triggered you.
Like journaling about it.
Yeah, journaling or just quiet reflection. It helps you understand your own patterns and where you want to grow.
Okay.
Nearly there.
A couple more really key ones. Anchor in self-respect, not ego. This is crucial.
Meaning choosing not to react isn't weakness.
Right. It's actually a sign of strong self-respect. You don't need to get drawn into negativity to prove anything. Responding calmly, maybe later when you're not emotional, shows real inner strength.
And a practice for that.
One suggestion was intentionally taking 10 minutes of silence after a really difficult interaction, just to settle yourself, regain composure.
I like that. And the last one.
The powerful reminder, don't be their mirror.
Don't just reflect their rudeness back at them.
Exactly. The world has enough reactivity. Be the presence that breaks the cycle. Choose calm, choose center, maybe choose that small smile, even if it's just for your own peace of mind.
Wow, that's a comprehensive toolkit. It really feels like it puts the power back in your hands, doesn't it? Not being at the mercy of someone else's mood. That's the goal. And it leads to this deeper idea of the strength that comes from non-reaction, from becoming ultimately unshakable.
Yes, that teaching you mentioned earlier from Gurudev. Absorb the rudeness, digest it, let it strengthen your mind. It sounds intense, but it makes sense in this context.
It does. It's about seeing that friction not just as something negative, but as something that can actually shape us, refine us, strengthen our inner core.
So the aim isn't necessarily to avoid rudeness altogether. Maybe that's impossible anyway, but to become so grounded inside.
That it just doesn't throw you off balance. You end up transforming the atmosphere around you rather than just absorbing the negativity yourself.
And it's important, you said, to clarify, this isn't about just passively accepting bad behavior, right?
Absolutely not. It's not about being a doormat. It's about choosing your response consciously from a place of inner strength and resilience, maybe even love, rather than just reacting defensively.
That Gurudev quote again, the question. Why does someone's rudeness disturb you so much? That really turns the focus inward, doesn't it?
It really does. It forces you to look at how much power you're giving external things over your own inner peace. It shows where your own work lies.
The more solid you are inside, the less shaken you are by outside events.
Exactly. The more deeply established you are in yourself, as the sources put it, the less susceptible you become.
Like that image of the still lake.
Yeah, completely undisturbed by the storm raging around it. That's the kind of inner peace, that resilience we're aiming for.
But ultimately, meeting rudeness with grace, with that kind of stillness, that's described as an extraordinary power.
It really is. The power of stillness, clarity, and that unshakable sense of inner calm or even love.
Yeah. So to kind of wrap up our deep dive today on this chapter, from an intimate note to the sincere seeker, the key takeaway seems to be, instead of getting caught in that cycle of reacting to rudeness with negativity, try to understand the possible underlying causes.
And then choose a different response, a non-reactive one, like that smile we talked about.
As a way to actively cultivate your own inner strength, your own balance.
Precisely. It turns a potentially upsetting encounter into a moment for inner growth.
Which leads us to a final thought for you, the listener.
Consider this. The next time you encounter behavior you perceive as rude, pause for a second. How might shifting your perspective using some of these ideas from the chapter actually change not just your outward response, but your inner feeling, your state of mind in that moment?
Something to reflect on.